What's up, everybody? TJ here. Real quick before we get started with the episode, I'm testing out a new feature called Fan Mail, which is where you can actually text me from the episode that you're listening to. So as you're listening to this, go over to the episode description, and right there at the beginning, you're going to see some text that says, send me a text message. Go ahead, click that. Let me know what you think about the podcast so far. Let me know of any questions, concerns, anything you might have. I love to hear from you. So go ahead, hit that up. I'm excited to read your text, and let's get started with the episode.
I played it off like I was trying to be a dickhead to the dudes that wouldn't teach me. But in hindsight, when I think about it, I probably didn't feel like I was doing a good job because I wasn't going to that many fires. And I was like, I got to practice. I'm not getting better at this, so I can do nothing. That's probably that all together is what it was like for me.
Welcome to the Keep the Promise podcast, where we help build resilient and well-rounded firefighters.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode of the Keep the Promise podcast. I'm your host, TJ, and today we have a returning guest, somebody whom you may recognize from episode 15 when we talked about cooking, when we talked about leadership, when we talked about firefighting, and a little bit of philosophy. He's a lieutenant in Harrisburg Bureau of Fire, a good friend of mine. We share lots of memes, which seems to be a trend with a lot of my guests. But I also truly admire the way his brain works and his take on philosophy, especially with the spin of doing it within the fire service. Without further ado, to talk about imposter syndrome, my buddy Brian Yonkin.
Hello, thank you,
Brian,
for having
welcome.
me. Excited. Been thinking about this for a couple of days. So we talked about it earlier. Like I just worked through some stuff and I was like, oh, I bet TJ's got an episode on this. And so I was like, yo, because I just wanted to get straight to it. I just wanted to, like, instead of searching for it, I was like, yo, what episode is it? And he's like, oh, I don't have one. You want to do it? I was like, yeah, sure. I just worked through my bullshit. So let's go.
Let's go. And what better way? It's easier for us to sit here and hypothetically talk about things. It's much better when we've actually gone through it, and who better to talk about it than you?
Better people, but I thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, you got the mustache, bro. Give us a quick recap of your life. We don't have to go as in depth as we did on the previous episode, but if somebody hasn't listened to 15 yet, which they should, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was a cook after high school. Moved to Phoenix. Did some chefing. Came back to the Philadelphia area, did some chefing there, and then hurt my back. Went to fireman school, tried to become a fireman, became a fireman in Harrisburg Bureau of Fire, and then moved to the ranks from fireman to driver or fireman, truckman, driver. Now I'm a lieutenant. Been a lieutenant for about 4 years. Been going on 5. Yeah. But now I'm remarried. I've got 4 kids instead of 2, and I'm a football and wrestling dad. 2 things that I never did when I was a kid. So I'm learning a lot just from that.
I just remember I kind of had to chuckle when we first chatted that you thought you could come in to the firehouse and be their cook.
Yeah. For some reason in my brain when I was a cook, I was like, oh, I could be a chef in the firehouse, and like that would be like me being a fireman or whatever. That would be like my part, because I was like this skinny, like 115-pound dude, like scrawny, and I was like, there's no way I'm able to do that shit. But I gained some muscle, and now I can pick some old man muscle, I guess is what you like to call it, and now I can hold my own. So
it's interesting some of the ideals that we come into the fire service with, and how quickly you have to look back and be like, wow, I was so mistaken.
Yeah, well, there's not much good information. I feel like they did a lot better. They did a lot better of a job describing what it was like to be a fireman, or like the thoughts and feelings around that in, say, like the early 2000s or 1990s. For lack of a better term, the lobbying for firemen, like the FDNY documentaries, you know what I mean? Like those are well thought out. And like when you watch those, like if you watch them now, you get a sense of pride, like that you're a fireman, right? And very few of those now or out, or at least I don't know about them. You know what I mean? So, I feel like if we did a better job marketing ourselves to the general public, we'd, one, get better applicants, and two, like, we probably wouldn't fight as much for contracts and stuff like that.
That's a rabbit
for
hole
sure. We don't have to do
down.
that.
Because I 100% agree with the fact that our marketing is abysmal. I mean, there's some departments that do it super well. The first one that always comes to mind is South Metro out in Colorado. Their PIO is dialed the fuck in. But of course, like you look at other departments that they might post once a month on Facebook, like, hey, remember to check your smoke detectors, or Sparky is going to be at the mall. And you're like, okay, you're not doing shit for teaching the public anything about anything, nor are you recruiting.
Yeah, it's a shame. It is what it is at this point. So unless somebody picks up the ball and runs with it, it's not going to be me. I can tell you that much.
No, because we are busy talking about imposter syndrome. And before we can figure out how to beat it, how to keep it at bay, how to not feel like imposters, we always have to define what the problem is, right? We have to operationalize what we're dealing with. So how would you define it? And why do you think we see it or we feel it quite often in the fire service?
So I had to look up the definition. I know what it felt like for me. It's the condition of feeling anxious, not feeling experience success internally, despite being a high performing in external objective ways. So for that, to me, it's like, what was the second part of the question?
Basically,
how it applies to the fire service. So go ahead. How it applies in the fire service. I would say that you could see a lot of younger guys acting certain ways, or maybe someone that just became an officer. I actually did not feel that way when I became an officer. It was afterwards. So like my personal experience with it was, it's just kind of a deep rabbit hole, but, like it felt like I was having a heart attack, and I would be waking up like in the middle of the night, like 3-4 in the morning, just like, what the fuck? Or I would try to meditate, and like my blood pressure was high. I just went to the doctor, and they're like, yeah, your blood pressure is a lot higher than it normally is. And I was like, yeah, I can't fucking figure it out. So they're like, oh, it's not too bad though. It was like 135 over 90 or whatever. And I was like, yeah, normally it's like 110 over 70. So it's like, yeah, something's up. And I couldn't figure it out. And I had read, The Body Keeps Score, and I had worked through a whole lot of shit in my life already. So I was like, it's gotta be something in my past, or, something else, or this, that, or the other thing. And, initially I thought it was, PTSD related, because I have that and I've been diagnosed with it. That being related, not necessarily to work, but it was my custody battle for my children, like my 2 daughters. That day was like the worst shit that I've ever experienced. And, afterwards, I can only talk about it a little bit. I can't go into detail, but like afterwards, I went to the gym because I was mad. And then all of a sudden, like my body was devoid of emotion, and that, I had to like throw things at like a heavy 20-pound sandbag at the wall to feel angry for a split second. And it was like, this is weird. Like I've experienced that before, but not to that extent. So when I just kind of like packed that away for a little bit, I got sad and shit, cried about it. Cause it was really nothing I could do at that point. So, and it is the way it was. And, so, I tried to overcompensate for that. Like I had them on the weekends. I have them on the weekends, 3 weekends of the month, and then split in the summer, and then like school holidays and shit like that. So when I had them, I would take off work because I would get anxious, like something was wrong. Like I wasn't sure if it was like dealing with their mother or just like whatever it was. Like I was like, there's something, I don't know what it is. So I went like fast forward like a year, and it was starting to affect my current relationship. Like now wife, she was my fiance at the time. Like everything she did was like getting to me. Like she deals with her stress completely different than I do. Like I attack it and she's kind of like backs away. So every time that would happen, it felt like, my body would be like, oh, what the fuck? So, and then I would dissociate, and then I would be able to sleep for like 2-3 days. So, and then I was like, I wasn't sleeping good, being grumpy as fuck to people. So I was like, I read this book, Fit for Off Duty. It talks about EMDR. So I was like, and I've heard 2 or 3 people, I don't know if they've been on your podcast, but one of the dudes that I know from like Art of Firemanship days who taught, and I was like, oh, and I heard his story, and I was like, yeah, I gotta try that. You know what I mean? And I had already been going to therapy for years. So, it was just talk therapy though. And it seemed to be helping, but it wasn't like, that was different stuff that I wasn't used to. And I was doing attachment theory work. I was doing like meditation. I was in talk therapy to like work through my junk, and it was working to an extent, but like that felt very different. And so I went to EMDR. One of the guys at work who's a combat Marine, he got blown up, got shot. He's got a fucking hole in his hip. He's got a fake hip, a metal hip because of it. And he's like, yeah, I did this, EMDR stuff. And he told me what it was like. And I was like, well, that sounds intense. And he's like, it is. And I was like, I didn't quite understand it at the time, how intense it was. But so knowing that, I went, and I was like, and being in therapy for so many years, I was like, the first time I went, I was just like, he's like, all right, so why are you here? And I was like, this, that, and the other thing, or like just fucking just like word vomited. And he's like, yeah, we can definitely help. So he did the paddle thing. Right away. Oh, and before this, like I wasn't my feeling, like I wasn't feeling anything, like I was numb a lot. So I was just like, there's something wrong with me. I can't fucking put my finger down. So, yeah. So like, it was just like a warm up to like show you what it's like. So he gives me the paddles, and they buzz real slow. And that was just like he's like, okay, I want you to think of like, in Fight Club, and he's like, think of your cave. And it was kind of like that. He's like, think of a place that you go to that you really like and it calms you. So I thought of this hike that I used to go to, this waterfall. That's the spot. Like I've meditated there lots of times, and I felt amazing every time that I come out of there. Gone in there with a pissy attitude, come out like 100% different. So I was like, that's the place. He's like, okay, cool. So he's just, I did the thing, and we rewired my brain real quick. And then he's like, all right, we're going to, pretend that you have a box. And I'm like, doesn't matter what size the box is. Or like, can it look like a pirate's chest? Cause when I think of a box, that's what I think of. You know what I mean? He's like, perfect. So he's like, all right. So he's like, pretend you have some emotion. You're thinking about something. It's really pissing you off, and give it a color or whatever. And he's like, I want you to put it in a box. Okay. So I did that. And then, and that was like the end of that session. So he was like, okay, we'll come back in a couple of days. We'll do another one. But in between that session and the next one, like I was excited about stuff. And I was like, I barely even scratched the surface of this. And this is already like 100% exactly what I'm looking for. And I told my wife, I was like, did you just see what I did? And she's like, no. I was like, I got excited over like something. And she's like, well, that's good. You know what I mean? I was just like, no, this is like a breakthrough. So I went back, and like worked through some junk through, the custody stuff. You know what I mean? And it was like anger and sadness and all that stuff. Like, And then, worked through some other stuff. And then, so I felt normal for a little bit. And I was like, okay, I got this shit squared away. You know what I mean? So then fast forward a couple months, still having, it felt like panic attacks, but not quite panic attacks. Cause I've had panic attacks before and they're nothing like it. So it was just like, felt like I was having a heart attack, waking up in the middle of the night, just preoccupied in my brain all the time, just about the most random stuff, trying to fill my days with stuff to do, just to occupy my brain, to idle it. Cause I was like, meditation's not working, fucking watch a movie and, just can't fucking stand still. Fucking, redo the house or whatever, redo the porch, go to the fucking tree house, do this, that, and the other thing. Which I did, you know what I mean? And I could do those things, but it just wasn't working. So I was just like, I'm talking to my therapist and there's something, I don't know what the fuck it is. I was like, it's just not bad. It's just there. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like a backpack with a bunch of rocks you're carrying around. You know what I mean? Or, it felt like there was a knot in my shoulder all the time. And I was like, oh, maybe it's my gallbladder. You know what I mean? And it was affecting what it felt like my, libido or whatever, was waking up with in the morning with a morning wood. And I was just like, maybe it's my chest off. So I'll fucking go get that shit. And, normal is subjective to people, but I had been getting my testosterone checked since I was 27. So I was like, oh, it's down 150, maybe I just need to get my sleep squared away. Cause I know that has a lot of effect with it. So I was like, oh, I'll get my circadian rhythm back in order. Cause that's what a couple of years ago, when I went through my divorce, that was my problem. I was so stressed out. I was of course, I was just streaming into my body. I stunk. Some weird, funky, smell. You know what I mean? Like a stress smell, that just doesn't go away. I was moody all the time. Same thing then, you know what I mean? Even though I didn't have a girlfriend or whatever, well, this is weird. I should be fine. And then, I got my sleep scared away and then, got my macros adjusted, my workouts, properly, mapped out. My central nervous system, calmed down. It took a while, but that was fine. And I was like, oh, if I do that again, I'll be good. So I did all those things, still had the same, panic, heart attack things. This is fucking weird. And then I was looking for a second job. And then I got that the second job with, Iron Wheel PT as, an assistant coach, enrollment specialist dude. And then I'm working through that, doing the stuff, killing it. You know what I mean? And then he noticed these things in me, the doing's too much. He watched how many hours I put into doing this. He's like, you have, really picked this up real quick. And it seems he's like, I noticed you're just been killing it. As soon as we let you loose, you're running, it's, hit the ground running or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I kept asking questions hey, I saw this thing. Should I be doing this? He's like, no, just do what we're doing. Just follow this, the training thing that I have. Okay. So next week I'd be like, hey, I saw this thing. We can do that. And then he'd be like, no, just do the thing. And then I was like, he would just kind of reel me back in. And then, one day he came in to our meeting. He was like, yeah, man, I just feel run down and I feel my heart hurts and it's kind of trying to fill my day with all this shit. And it's yeah, I just know it's this thing that I do every once in a while. It's anxiety related. I was it's the light bulb. I was just and I was just oh, that's weird. Cause I was trying to make it relevant to me. Cause that's what you do when you have conversations. So I was just okay. And it was just the dog tilt, or just the dog head tilt. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So, and, about 3 months prior to that, my wife had mentioned something similar that she experienced, like, 'cause she's a perfectionist, and like, she'd be like, oh, did you ever feel like, when you became a lieutenant or that you didn't quite know what you're doing? And I was like, well, I mean, for probably 6 to 12 months. Yeah. But no, now I feel fine. You know what I mean? I'm doing great. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. Like with the fires, I do a good job, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. Like I basically overcompensated for any inadequacies that I could have had, by being a high performer. And that's just probably how I was raised to do things. I don't know. So yeah, the coach, called me out on that. And then the next week, he went out to this conference and I was watching the stories he was doing and they talked about imposter syndrome. And I was like, and then what it felt like, I can't remember the screenshot, but I was like, that's it. I think that's it. Like, and so and then I had a meeting with him like 2 days later. And I was like, yeah, I saw what the thing you did over the weekend and the training. Excuse me. And I was like, all those things you talked about last week, like I experienced all those things. And I think it was like imposter syndrome. Like I was, cause I feel like I'm not good at this. And I just kind of feel like, a fraud at this point. Cause I'm trying to do the thing and I have no experience to base it off of, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of like dipping my toes in the water. And he was like, yeah, man, no, that is like totally normal. Like, and you're doing a good job. Like you're exactly where you need to be. And, it's just something we all have to work through. And he was like, he just kind of worked me through that weird feeling that I had been stressing out about for like 3 years that nobody else could, including my therapist or my friends or my family. And I was just like, that is a good coach. You know what I mean? That's a good leader. And I was like, oh, this is why I wanted to work with this guy. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, this is going to be so helpful for the rest of my life, just to be, to make that feeling relevant for other people that are under me or above me or whatever. You know what I mean? Cause I've seen it in other people, and I probably did it when I was a fireman. You know what I mean? Cause I was like, when I was a fireman, I was that little shithead that was posting videos all the time to like show you that I was doing a good job. And, I was, look at me, I'm doing this. I played it off like I was trying to be a dickhead to the dudes that wouldn't teach me. But in hindsight, when I think about it, I probably didn't feel like I was doing a good job because I wasn't going through that many fires. And I was like, I have to, I got to practice. I'm not getting better at this, so I can do nothing. So, that's probably that. I mean, that all together is what it was like for me. It is a long-winded answer, but it's not a short thing that happened. It was like a cascade of events, or it was just like one thing after the other. And that's what happened.
Hey friends, I want to take a quick moment to ask you to support the show by leaving a rating and a review on your favorite platform. Your support means the world to us, and it helps spread the message to even more people. We've gotten thousands and thousands of listeners, and those high ratings help our show become more discoverable, allowing us to reach even more listeners and make an even greater impact. So if you've enjoyed what you heard so far, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review. It only takes a few seconds, and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the show. It's so fascinating, the things that you described, because to me, it felt like you were almost word for word talking about things that I have experienced up until recent time. I wrote down not in the shoulder, like quadruple underline, because I have had something that I don't like. It feels like a nod, but
yeah,
but not quite.
Yeah, no. You
That
try to
makes sense.
rub it. You try to like massage it out, and it would feel better for a little bit, and then it would just fucking come back, and it would be like this, like agony, annoying. Not so much as agony, but just annoying thing. Like it's just there. Like there's a gremlin on your shoulder. Like,
yeah,
that's my gremlin nose.
it's the lack of excitement also got me, because I only half jokingly have told friends and coworkers that I'm pretty sure our dopamine receptors are just fried. Like we always keep chasing that dragon of, all right, almost got into a bad spot at the last fire. Let's see if we can get into a worse spot just so I can feel
I have
something.
a habit of like driving fast, like really fast. Like 10 miles over the speed limit, just enough that I won't get in trouble. Yeah.
Those are rookie numbers.
I have kids in the cars, right? Sometimes, so I can't.
Oh yeah, no, don't speed. You absolutely.
So, and now, I smoke cigars. I smoke a lot, and in that time, I was like, I wanted to drink. You know what I mean? Because of dopamine. And I even told my therapist one time, I was like, I just needed a drink, because I was like, I know I needed dopamine for where I was stressed out, and I just needed dopamine. And I was like, I'm going to get fucking wasted. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm not going to do that every week. And I was just like, I want to do this. You know what I mean? And that's not a healthy outlet, an output. I mean, it's every once in a while, but to be like, and I changed my diet, and I recognized that when I took certain foods out, like, it made me want to drink more. And I was like, oh, I have a healthy attachment to food as well. Like, cause food made me feel good, cause it made me feel powerful. Cause when I ate a lot, I was strong. You know what I mean? But when I took away the carbs and the fat, it made me feel weak. So I was like, how can I compensate for that? You know what I mean? So I was like, just all these things, like, it's just a shotgun of all these symptoms just came from one place.
And I like how we are reframing it, how you are reframing it, in taking that shotgun approach, those different symptoms that come from one direction, because you opened my eyes, dude. Like the things that you mentioned, the lack of excitement, same thing. I speed. The other day I was in doing like 90 miles an hour, like an absolute idiot. And there was a car that stopped on the highway, and I was able to just not even looking at my phone, because I'm a moron, dropped the phone, went onto the shoulder, kicked up all the dust, didn't even slow down, and then got back on the highway. Not even thinking, like, I almost just slammed into a car and died. Didn't even have the feeling in my leg. You know when you almost wreck, that you have that like that feeling in your legs. That
was close.
Didn't And that's when I thought to myself, I'm like, dude, I am so messed up that I'm just going along, back to singing the song I was singing, try to figure out where my phone went type thing. And the panic attacks are another thing that, now looking at it, I can see where it's coming from, because I've had two big ones that I can really, two big panic attacks that I can really say that I've experienced. One was like a month after our line of duty death happened at the gym, and felt like a heart attack, felt like my lights were going out. And the other one happened, of all places, the irony, at the Firefighter Health and Wellness Conference in Ohio back in October, where I could not even go back to bed. I was at an Airbnb, and I walked downstairs, curled up in a blanket on the couch, and alternated between screaming into a pillow, and then, like, when the cats are about to get their zoomies and their eyes are like wide and they're like freaking out looking at everything. Dude, every car that drove past that house, because it was near a busy road, I was just like, they're coming to get me. Yeah. And thankfully, I've talked to enough people, and we've dealt with enough patients who have had panic attacks, that I knew what it was, and I knew I had to just almost let it happen, pretty much. But if I start, at least and we're not making this about me, but if I start taking all of the things that you described, looking at them under the umbrella of imposter syndrome, I can zoom out enough and say, this is exactly why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, because of the pressures of the job, the podcast, life, trying to be somebody I wasn't. It just checks out. It 100% checks out. And I guarantee you, somebody else listening to this right now is going to be like, holy fuck, I'm feeling.
Yeah. And then I didn't realize it until my coach said that to me. You know what I mean? Or described it in a way that it made sense in my head. And apparently there's like 5 different types of imposter syndromes. You know what I mean? So like, there's the perfectionist, which is what my wife was, describing to me. The expert type. I don't know what that is. Natural genius apparently is like one thing that's like, you just are really good at the thing. Come naturally. The soloist, you don't ask for help, and the super person, you're just, a high performer, which is, it felt like the super person was more my, definition of, imposter syndrome. And that's what it felt like anyway to me, cause I was like, I'm doing all these things. I'm checking all the boxes. I'm getting everything right. I'm doing a good job, externally, but inside it felt like I wasn't doing a good job. So yeah, I mean, and it came out. Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. Do you think it affects the high performers more because of the hyper awareness? Because I have my hypothesis, but I want to hear your thoughts.
I would say so, because we're probably, our personalities, like, if you take, a certain personality test, depending on which one you take, like, if you give me a goal, I will crush it. You know what I mean? Or like, and then it only takes me like 40% information to make a good decision, based on the personality test that I've taken. And it won't necessarily be the right decision. It will work. The more information I have, the better decision, obviously, I'll make. But like, I can make the right decision with 40% information. And it's just, that's how my brain works, or apparently. And I've taken personality tests over personality tests, and they all say the same thing. And I don't know where that comes from. It's probably just the way my brain wired, or how I was taught from my father or my brother or my uncle's thing.
I think especially our kind of people, the ones who gravitate to the fire service, the fixers, the high performers, because we are so hyper aware of everything, including our own shortcomings. There's a meme that I sent my buddy Stack, the one from the Things We All Carry podcast, that I'm like, maybe this is why I don't see eye to eye with a lot of people in the fire department. And the meme said, I wish I lacked critical thinking skills because all y'all seem super happy.
No, I can definitely relate.
And it's so interesting. It's so, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the whole imposter syndrome thing I'm looking at you as a fire officer, and I'm looking at some of the not so high performing officers that I know who are just so happy and so unaware of how unfit they may be, or how dangerous it is what they're doing, that they're not performing as they should. It's just, I think this kind of personality is prone to it. And I don't think that the fire service I think the culture and the nature of the fire service exacerbates those things. Because you mentioned, you're like, hey, I'm posting videos about fires, like, I'm not going to enough. If we're not getting constantly tested, if we're not constantly proving to ourselves that we can do it, then those thoughts start creeping in.
Yeah, definitely. I think to go along with what you were talking about, like the officers, this is kind of related, but kind of not, but it just popped in my head. Like, the thoughts that I was feeling, like one of my buddies in my academy just got promoted. And the initial thing that I thought when he got promoted, I was like, oh, he's going to be a better officer then, because he had more fire. And I was like, and I had been a lieutenant for like 3 years at this point, and I already made my bones. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, this dude's going to be better than me. And I was like, fuck says that? You know what I mean? Like, you want this guy to do well, but you don't want to downplay your own success. And I was like, but I wholeheartedly still felt that. And then another dude was on the list that was in my academy. And I was like, oh, that dude's gonna be awesome too. Cause this, that, and the other thing. He's got this going on. People think he's much more well respected than me. Like this and that, the other thing. And I was like, you know, he wouldn't do well, and then you sit back and you're like, why the fuck was I, you know, like downplaying my own successes to bring up these other people, which is, you know, I guess altruistic, but, you don't want to, you know, you still want to have confidence. And I had shit confidence at that point. And I was just like, oh man. And I directly related to, you know, the change in my father status. Like instead of a full-time dad, I was a part-time dad. It's like, and it just crushed my soul. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was just like, but my wife, my fiance at the time, is just like, okay, what are you going to do? You know, cause I was like, I don't feel good. I don't feel like I'm a good officer. So what are you going to do? I'm going to fucking do it every day. I'm going to make sure the guys are okay. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And that's what I did. And it still was in there. You know what I mean? Like, and Facebook doesn't fucking make it any better, or Instagram doesn't make it any better. Cause all I'm looking at is like, you're a fucking shitbag if you don't do this. You know what I mean? Like, you're a shitbag if you don't work out. And I'm working out fucking 6 days a week. Someday, and then for a while there, I was working out twice a day just to see if it would calm my body down. Cause I knew it did before. And I was like, nothing in this shit is working. Like, what the fuck is working? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, and she knew her instincts were much better than mine. That's the nice thing about women, right? They can see through your junk. You can't see through your junk. It's just how they communicated with you. She tried her best, you know what I mean? But it just I wasn't receiving it. And maybe I wasn't asking for, you know, feedback, and she was just giving it to me, and I hate that shit. So my fucking parents do that shit to me. Her brother does it to me, and I yell at my brother for it. I'm just like, knock it the fuck off. I didn't ask you for your opinion. Just listen. But like, you know what I mean? It's just like, she knew what was going on with me. She couldn't relate it to how I was feeling. I had to have another guy that I respected. Like you said earlier, I had to have another guy that I respected be like, hey, this is what's going on for me. And it's totally fucking normal. And I was like, oh my God. And as soon as I got it, as soon as I recognized it, I slept better. Everything improved. You know what I mean? Like the way I acted at work. Like I was being a prick to dudes at work because that was the leadership example that I had in front of me. Like, you know, push, you know, iron fist, fucking be an asshole. That is not me authentically. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I was not being myself. And then like, after I got it sorted away, they were like, how come you didn't take the captain's test? And I was like, initially I was like, I wasn't ready for it. Like, which is what I told them. And I was like, yo, man, I was so in my head, like that custody shit fucked me up. And I was not ready for it. I thought that I couldn't do a good job. And obviously you guys know that I was being an asshole. And they're like, yeah, we know. And I was like, I was fucking up. And, you guys tried to tell me in the way that you told me, but like, nothing was sinking. Nothing was sinking. And, you know what I mean? Like at one point, even in this, I was like, I probably should demote, like, cause I can't be the officer that I want to be. You know what I mean? And I can't do this. Like cause I'm showing up, 2 days a week, maybe, or whatever. Like, now I'm not 100% there for whatever I'm trying to be. You know what I mean? Like I secluded myself from all the guys. Like I would fucking hang out in the engine bay when they were watching movies, or I would be in my office or away from them. You know what I mean? Like all the symptoms that something's going on that only like one or two people called me out on. You know what I mean? Hey, you good? And I'd be like, I fucking think so. I don't know. Like it feels like I'm fine. Like I'm waking up, I'm doing my job, I'm doing this and the other thing. But I was so dissociated from my bullshit that I didn't know there was something wrong. And I eventually went and talked to that dude. I was like, yo, dude, thanks for like waking me up to something being wrong. Cause I probably would have never like tried to figure it out. I would have just kept going and probably would have just made myself sick. Like I lost hair on my face. You could see it. Yeah, I
I just
just
see, like, a
mustache, but
mustache.
like right here is bald spots from like this,
Yeah,
stress.
I see it. I see a patch.
And I was like, I thought it was diet. I thought it was the sleep. I thought it was this, that, and the other thing. I think it's just, my body's like, I'm done with you. You either change or you're going to die. You know what I mean? So, a slow death, not a fun death. Like, going out in a blaze of glory that, every guy wants to do. Or I'd rather die, raging through in my, over a bump in my car, exploding and, driving 100 miles an hour than fucking, I'm having a heart attack on my couch or in my bed, or taking shit, what people do it. But yeah, that was it. You know what I mean? And when I worked through it, like, there was this one call that was one of your questions. Where is it? Yeah,
specific incident.
That like made me think about it. It wasn't when it happened. It was a specific incident that gave me like, it brought me back to EMDR. Like, it made me dissociate. And I was like, oh, it took me 3 days to get over this call. And it wasn't even that bad of a call. It was just what had happened at the call. So we went to this vehicle accident, in the middle of the night. Car on its side, this lady's trapped in there. She's not really hurt that bad. She's just kind of in there. And it took us like 15, 20 minutes to cut this roof off. And it was just like everything we were doing wasn't working. And I'd be like, hey, you go do this thing. And then I'd see them go do it. And then I'd turn around and I'd look back and they had put that tool down. And I was like, what the fuck? And then, I'd be like, hey, go do this thing, get this thing. And I'd see them going on the way to do it. And then they would just stop. And it was just like, what the fuck is going on? And then, I ended up like involving myself in the extrication because I was just like, hey, somebody needs to get the Sawzall and do the thing. And it was just like slow motion. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Like, this lady needs to get the fuck out of here. She's been here too long. So I start doing the thing and I start cutting we cut all the posts, but then the last post was like high strength steel and we couldn't get through it because it was super thick. Whatever it was. We tried Sawzall, we tried the cutters, we tried the speedway cutters. Nothing was working. So we did like a relief cut straight down and then left the D posts on both sides there. It was just like, went through the sheet metal to the post. And then she was out and we're good. So I was just like, oh, cool. And then went back to the firehouse, couldn't fucking sleep. You know what I mean? It was just, couldn't sleep for shit for like 2 days. Oh, you motherfucker. So I was like, I know what that is. Cause I've been to EDMR and that was some of the stuff that was going on before. So I was like, all right, we need to do this thing. And he was like, well, sounds like your boy's let down. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what so we worked through it and it was like, I can't remember what had happened, but I had worked through that. And then after I had worked through the imposter syndrome, I had looked back on all the stuff that had happened since the custody. And that call it felt like I was a fraud. That's why people weren't listening to me, or like they didn't respect me or whatever. All these things, all these excuses that had come up in my brain as to why they weren't doing the thing. But I didn't have the whole picture at that point, right? So I didn't have the whole picture of like, somebody stopped them on the way and be like, hey, we're not doing that or whatever. Or the other lieutenant was the rescue lieutenant was like running the show. And I was just kind of trying to do tactics at that point. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I was interjecting in the plan and I didn't get it. But it felt like all these things happened. So it's just like, it was nice to kind of like get full closure on why I felt that way instead of just, working through it in EDMR, which helped 100%, but it like, get that last little edge on.
Hey everyone, it's TJ here from Keep the Promise. As you know, this podcast is all about helping firefighters become more resilient and well-rounded so that they can be a force for good within their fire department and their community. But today I want to talk to you about something that's just as important, and that is supporting firefighters who are going through tough times. When one of our fellow firefighters is off work because they have to go to the Center for Excellence, they have to go to rehab, they have mental health issues, or they have other health issues, it really takes away their support system and it wreaks havoc on their finances and their family's finances. And many times, these brothers and sisters are left to struggle alone, away from their support system and the people who love them without the resources they need to recover. That's why I'm setting a bold new goal. That is to reach 150 total patrons on Patreon so that we can start a fund to help firefighters and their families during these challenging times. And I need your help to make it happen. With your support on Patreon, we'll be able to provide financial assistance to firefighter families who are battling things like addiction, depression, and cancer. We're going to help alleviate the financial strain that can come with being away from the fire department so that our brothers and sisters can focus on healing and recovering. Now, reaching 150 total patrons is a big goal, but I believe that we can do it together. And when we do, we'll be able to make a real difference in the lives of those who serve and protect alongside us. So, if you're not already a patron, I invite you to join us today. Head over to joinkeepthepromise.com and sign up today. Again, that is joinkeepthepromise.com. And if you already are a patron, thank you so much for your support. You'll be receiving some exclusive rewards and perks as a way of saying thanks. Together, let's show our fellow firefighters that we've got their back just like they always have ours. Thank you for listening. Let's get started with the episode.